Welcome to Lena World. Springtime. Springtime is the time to think about planting things, about sowing things, right? Everything is cyclical. Springtime is to plant and to start slowly observe how things grow. It's like human life. We're born, right? And then we start slowly growing until we reach our peak, which is summertime and nature's one cycle, and then the harvest season, which is, the waning, wilting, and eventually we leave our bodies, plants wilt, and say adios, goodbye until next life, next cycle, okay, next year. So, springtime, sowing. Let me tell you a few things about planting things and when you should start thinking about this in a four-season climate. When the first sun rays, penetrate, pierce through your window, spring is just around the corner. And that's the time you have to start thinking, maybe I should be already planning what I'm going to do with my garden if you have a patch of land. So this talk is only probably useful for those who are either inspired to buy a patch of land, to rent one out, or to share one with a friend, or already have one. And it's the end of March, beginning of April, when the biggest cold is over. That's the time you have to start thinking, okay, I have a greenhouse, and the greenhouse is, because the doors are closed, it's protected, it's shielded, so it's naturally warmer. So that's when we're going to go first and sow a few things. So just think about it. What goes into a green salad? It's lettuce, radishes, spinach, dill, parsley, rucola, type of a lettuce, right? So these are the things you want to plant in the greenhouse. There is also another school, and we've tried it in the past as well. When it comes to lettuce, for example, you can just spread it in late fall when your harvest is over and just leave it like that. Spread the seeds in the greenhouse, and apparently, when the spring comes, they sprout, even though they've been sowed months back, late fall. Because, during winter time, we keep the greenhouse closed. But for many, many years, we used to do that only in early spring, which is end of March, beginning of April. So it's up to you when you want to do that. Now, when it comes to rucola, for example, rucola is a perennial plant. It's like a type of a lettuce, right? We'll know rucola. And it's you plant it once and it spreads seeds all over the place in the greenhouse outside. You don't need to replant it afterwards. It just regrows itself. Beautiful thing about it. But green lettuce, iceberg lettuce, radishes, you need to re-sow them, replant them. So here are some seeds. You can go to any seed store. So, for example, the dill, as I said, the radish, the rucola if it's the first time, or radish, parsley, iceberg lettuce, and then we have some more green lettuce. So these would be the things you would be thinking of planting in the greenhouse end of March, beginning of April. What else could you do in the meantime? Tomatoes, cucumbers. It's way too early, but you already need to start planning. How do you plan? How do you go about them? We do have some more radishes here. I see cucumber seeds, tomato seeds here as well. So some more tomatoes here as well, right? Tomato seeds. You can't plant them in the greenhouse or outdoors yet, but you have to take these little flower pots and plant them, to sprout them, to get the seedlings. You just take some soil, with probably mixed with some like peat or some other, but normally you can buy this thing, the soil itself in any seed shop, they sell it. And just put the seed in, you put it in the soil, and don't forget to water it, okay? You put just one seed in the soil, and each pot has to have one seed. So they're readily available, they're reusable, that's great. You don't need to buy those every year. And you keep watering them until mid-May comes. Okay, and then I'll tell you what we do in mid-May. But there's two things, not one thing. I was about to say one thing. There are two things you can already plant at the end of end of March, beginning of April. What are these? The things that are not afraid of cold, natural, because it's still cold, the temperatures at night drop, right? What are these things? These things are carrots. Carrots are not afraid of cold. And also onions. So onions, these little onions, we left them from last year's season, harvest season, and just for this purpose of sowing more of those. So again, you can already go outside. They're not afraid of cold. Carrots and onions. Other things have to wait. So now mid-May comes, you can already start. When mid-May, I mean there's no more really cold. You can plant other things, and one of the things that is very afraid of cold, and you really have to wait until mid-May, is beetroot. That's the time when you can only plant beetroot. If you plant it earlier, it's just not gonna come even above the Mother Earth, because these beets are very sensitive to cold. So you have to wait. And also mid-May, once our saplings, we start watering, the saplings are this big, we germinate them, what I was just telling you, we can take them into the greenhouse and already plant and transplant rather, them in the greenhouse. In case, they didn't sprout properly, or something happened, or didn't have time, or whatever, you can go to a farmer's market and get those saplings, the seedlings. So the seedlings, you can buy them in the farmer's market because there are people who take care of it. But again, it's a dicey game. We don't know how real, how natural, and even with all the seeds, in the old times, we used to have the real deal, the good seeds. Nowadays, they claim they're real, but what do we know? Maybe they're genetically modified. There are so many deviations. It's not like in the old times. So, tomatoes, cucumbers. And one more thing I forgot to mention also, zucchini, pumpkin, squash also do the same thing, end of March, beginning of April. The same thing with those seeds as well. But as I said, if you can't do them, they don't sprout, they don't germinate, then you'll have to go to the farmer's market and get them before you transplant them in the soil around mid-May or so. Okay. Now, there's one, okay, what else do we have here? Oh, we have some lavender, we have some sweet basil. You can grow them in flower pots in the house. And then I see we also have some cabbage and cauliflower. So these things we don't plant anymore, because for those you really need an open air land. When I was growing up, we did have a huge open air land, and that's where we used to grow cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli, the same family, right? And because if it's a little bit not too open and not too much land, very easily you'll get worms, and you'll be very disappointed. The worms that love eating those things, because they really need the breeze of fresh air, wind, you'll be disappointed with the harvest. So if your land is not big, or it's not airy, not spacey, so don't even try. We can try, only we know how things are when we try things, right? But I'm just saying from our experience that only if it's an open patch of land, that's when you only plant those cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. Okay? Now, special word on potatoes. Around April 20th only, when not just the cold, but not just the most cold is over, but even the frost is over. What I mean by frost, nighttime temperatures drop always, right? Nighttime. So we have to make sure they don't go below 0, because these are again from last year's season, those potatoes, and we left few little potatoes, not a few, but a lot, but these little potatoes in size, because just, to use our own seeds, our own kind of potatoes. And if you plant them too early and there's still frost at night and they already are above the Mother Earth, what is going to happen is that they're going to die. That's all. If the frost happens at night, because mostly, the temperature, variation of the temperature, the difference is very huge in spring until late spring. Sometimes it can be, it depends on the year. If they are below the soil and the frost happens, at night. So the temperatures really drop below zero. They haven't really gone above the earth, the soil. They'll be okay. Now let's assume that there's no frost and we really want to plant them around April 20th in a 4-season climate, as I said. So how do you go about them? Just a week, it's just a piece of advice. A week prior to planting potatoes, you take them to the greenhouse, just spread them, water them very nice a few days in a row. They'll turn green in color and they'll start sprouting. What does that mean? You just gave life, prana, induced that life into them. They are ready to be sowed, they're ready to be planted, and then they'll grow much better because you already induced them with life. So there is more guarantee, more chance you'll have beautiful potatoes. So again, you take them to the greenhouse a week prior to planting those potatoes, spray them, but water them, and a few days in a row, they'll turn a little greenish and they'll start sprouting. That's the time you put in the soil itself. Now what else can I give you a piece of advice? Now about the soil. Let's talk about the soil. The soil itself, there are plants that like more clay type of soil. So these are strawberries, apples, pears. I prefer more clay type of soil. Now, if you talk about flowers, let's say rhododendron, azaleum, roses, or even high bush blueberries, they prefer more acidic type of soil. Now, how can you acidify soil? You either add and mix the soil itself with peat moss. Okay, that will add acidity to the soil because these particular plants, they prefer flowers that I just mentioned, as well as blueberries, because they come from a forest, low bush blueberries, and forest environment, pine trees, fir trees, is more acidic there. So at least the moss itself, you can also add some pine needles, for example, bring it to your patch of land for those particular plants. So acidifying. And then if you want to alkalize it a little bit, so most of the plants, of course, prefer more alkaline environment, like humans, right? To stay healthy, we have to have more alkaline. pH has to be in balance, not too extreme one on the other side, but more alkaline is considered to be better. The same goes for the plants. So if you want a more alkaline environment, so then you add calcite, which is a type of chalk, or ashes, which is burnt wood, and birch tree is a very good one, for example. It's considered very beneficial, very good fertilizer too. So to alkalize the earth, the soil itself. Now planting, let's say if you have a lot of trees like apple trees, pears, you don't want to, like, let's say have a bunch of strawberries underneath those trees, because they'll give too much shade. They will not get enough sunlight. And not only that, trees themselves, with their roots, they absorb, take a lot of good nutrients from the soil. So these little plants, whatever you're planting, they will not have enough nutrients for their own roots. So let's say if you plant many strawberries underneath a big shaded tree, so the tree itself, its roots will take a lot of nutrients from the soil, and you will not have enough nutrients for the strawberries. So just think about it, some food for thought. And also, when you, let's say, have a patch of land and you have for a few years, so you want to mix places. Let's say this one year you have strawberries, another year you have in the same spot maybe garlic or onion, and you keep mixing it. So that's a very nice way to fertilize the land. Otherwise, if you keep the same thing in the same spot for many years, the harvest is going to go down, 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 down. Okay. So that's a little bit of information that I could share with you. And of course, there is, don't use those chemicals, use natural compost. That's what we tend to use, the compost. And by the way, who likes to grow in the compost pile? We have zucchinis, squashes, we just talked about them, and pumpkins. They love the compost piles. Once the saplings are out, you have them in the flower pots, and maybe you bought them from the market, right? They were germinated maybe, or you bought them, then plant them somewhere near the compost pile. They love this kind of not a very fascinating looking pile. Then they'll just grow all around. It's going to be even more aesthetically pleasing, but they thrive in that particular spot, place. Don't use chemicals, please, because we've already destroyed our Mother Earth so much. I remember growing up, we used to have a lot of worms in our patch of land. a lot of worms. And as kids, we used to play them, no, we never like touch them, kill them, but we used to play. Who finds, would dig the soil as kids, really would love them, and nowadays I really don't see as many, even though we don't really use any chemicals here, but I don't see as many. I think probably they're gone or something. I don't know. When I was a kid, there used to be plenty. They are the natural, like fertilizers for the land. What do I mean? They do their job. Let the insects and worms and, all these little things do their job for the soil. You don't want chemicals. You really don't. And actually, I have a friend, although she has a big, big, big patch of land, and she rents some of it out. She leases it out, some of because she has a lot of it, and near the forest also. Beautiful place. Very dear friend of mine, a couple actually. And they lease it out on a condition that the people who lease it out are not going to use any chemicals. Only natural fertilizers, no chemicals. That's what their soil, their earth is so fertile. Beautiful. And you know what's funny? The people say, okay, and the next day they don't even call them back. That's what happened. That's how we've changed. People have changed, and nobody wants to grow things without chemicals anymore, unfortunately. But it's high time to wake up, to go back to our roots, to start living in tune with nature, to respect her. She doesn't need us. We need her. So we better start respecting her before she takes our lives, literally, because everything is shrinking. We're eating chemicals. We don't know what we're having, what we're buying in the store. Maybe it tastes good, but what are the side effects in our body? So once again, I really, really invite you to live and lead a healthy life, to live in tune with nature, to start respecting her, to embark upon this journey of sowing things yourself. You'll do a lot of good for your own body and for this beautiful Mother Earth of ours. It's high time to wake up and to reverse the trend our beautiful Mother Earth has been going. So I invite you to, I wouldn't say this movement, that sounds very political, but to really take that initiative. Don't think, okay, if I do, I'm alone like this, I can make no difference. No. The big difference starts with the first step. On a small scale, you do, somebody else will do, and the collective consciousness, collective efforts will make a difference. So again, welcome to Lena World. I just shared a little bit of information about planting, sowing things, and especially if you're a beginner, maybe you've never done this. If you're already a gardener, maybe it's too easy what I've just shared. You have your own insights. And again, these things, what I've just told you, for 4-season climate in this part of the world. So live in tune with nature, learn from farmers, read some information, and just be kind to the Mother Earth. Be kind to her. Again, when the summer comes, I'm going to share you more things, more surprises. I'll take you to my garden, but more about it later in other sessions. Welcome to Lena World.